Hello and welcome. This is for the 1.03 video tutorial, walking through the lesson. As you can see, I'm already in the content. I've already shown you the previous 2 weeks how to get there. Once you're logged in and in the class home, always go up through content to get to the lesson. We are doing 1.07 controversy. We have, it looks like 8 modules to go through, so let's get started. Lesson introduction. And let me move myself so I won't be in the way. Okay. Controversy. Do you have something you do really well? Maybe it's playing a sport, playing a musical instrument, or drawing beautiful sketches. What if someone told you that you could not do it anymore because you had a certain skin color or were a certain gender? The next story you will read tells of a great singer who faced discrimination a great singer who faced discrimination. Read on to learn about what happened. And this is a picture of who we're going to be reading about. Does anyone recognize this famous lady? So we're going to find out who she is. All right, review the lesson guides to learn about the activities. Always, always, always download this lesson guide, because it tells you what you're going to be learning about, identify character traits and motivations, compare and contrast two authors' presentations of events, formulate opinions and personal responses after reading, recognize devices used by an author to achieve the purpose, including language, organization, or structure. And I like to go ahead and download the materials. So let's go ahead and download that graphic organizer and open it up. And remember, in order to be able to type, you need to click this Enable Editing button to get that yellow bar to go away. And then you're able to put your name. All right, I'm just going to minimize that and this. And go ahead and open up the observation sheet. You always have an observation sheet to fill out while you're reading whatever story it is. And again, click this Enable Editing. Just want to minimize it. Okay. And then you can type your name. And if you're going to type the date, just be sure you get right next to that colon. And I'm filming this on the 26th, but not of 19. All right, and just minimize that for now. All right, and the keywords: accept, accept, a verb meaning to acknowledge as correct or appropriate. Equality, the equal treatment of people. Flashback, a narrative technique that allows authors to introduce past events that have a direct impact on the story's present. Remember, the last story we read about Casals, it had a flashback in it. Secondary source, a source of information created by someone who did not witness an event. And that's it. All right, I'm just going to leave this pulled up and click back on the first tab. And there's no other, there's no other slides. We're on 2 of 2, so we're ready to move on by clicking that arrow up at the top. And it's going to take us to our first one, Controversy 1. Rising above adversity. Though slavery was outlawed in the United States during the Civil War, the effects of discrimination and racism lingered much longer. African Americans were denied the opportunities whites had. Segregation was the norm in schools, hotels, restaurants, concert halls, churches, restrooms, and public transportation. Racial equality, let me click on the blue words, the equal treatment of all people, was a concept that was very far off. Not until 1954 was school segregation ruled unconstitutional. That means separate schools based upon what race you were. In the arts, African Americans did not have the equivalent. 1 cup is equivalent to 8 ounces, so equal opportunities that white artists did. African American artists were subject to the same prejudice in the art world that they faced every day. Due to prejudice, the Daughters of the American Revolution would not allow Marian Anderson to perform because of her race. That was the picture of the lady, Marian Anderson. We're going to learn more about her. Marian Anderson, the artist in Marian Anderson Sings, that's the story we're going to be reading, faced racism as a young child and throughout her career. This story tells about her most famous opposition to racism and perhaps her greatest triumph over it. And then we have a picture here showing a sign that says colored waiting room, private property, no parking. So the people of color could not even wait in the same area as white people. And that's all. There's no extra slides set, so we'll go back up here and press the next button. Controversy 2. Marian Anderson. Marian Anderson Sings explains how a young African-American woman ended up singing to a crowd of over 75,000 in front of the Lincoln Memorial on Easter Sunday, 1939. This reading is a secondary source for biological information, and a secondary source is a source of information created by someone who did not witness the event. Make predictions as you read and confirm or revise those predictions based on what you read in the story. And then read the story, Marian. So first you're going to download this graphic organizer, which we already did. So let me get that graphic organizer pulled back up. I think it's this one. What type of text is it? Is it a narrative, an autobiography, an expository, information, or technical? I'm going to pull this off to the side just for a minute. I'm going to try to. So we can talk about it. Well, we haven't looked at it yet, but since it's based on a person, and it's not written by that person, it's a secondary resource, it's probably just a biography, is what I'm going to guess. How do you know what type of text this is? Okay, well, we know it's going to be talking about Marian Anderson, who's a real person. And I'm putting that she was an African-American artist as well. All right, so we know that about her. The next thing says, make predictions. Let me see if I can make this a little bit smaller where I can have it over here. Okay, so the first thing you should do is fill this out. Make predictions based on the headings, titles, and images. So we need to go ahead and open up the text before we do that. So you can click on this link right here, and it will take you to your textbook. You can also get to your textbook. Let me go home here. Go back to content. You can also go to it over here where it says, welcome to the course, and it has resources. There's the online book right there. But the easiest way is just while you're doing it in the lesson, click on it and it opens right up. Now it's always going to take you just to the front cover. You have to know that we're in the unit of influential people and that we're going to be reading Marian Anderson Sings. So there it is right there. We click there and it takes you right to page 322. In the book. All right. And let's go ahead and just look at it, just scan through it real quick, the first page. All right, and then let's look at that third prediction. Make predictions based on the headings and titles. So we have Marian Anderson sings. What could we possibly infer about what the story is going to be about, or the organization of this? Well, it will be about Marian Anderson, obviously. She may be a singer because it says she sings. So it says she's an artist, but it doesn't say if she's like a painter or a singer or a writer, or there's many types of artists. And since it mentions that there's going to be we're going to be learning about flashbacks, I'm going to predict that there will be a flashback in the story. But I guess it's going to mostly be told in chronological order. And I guess we'll see if I'm right. All right, Marian Anderson Sings by Mara Rockcliffe. And I'm going to move myself because I know the arrows are going to be over here. So, the instant Marian Anderson stepped off the train in Washington, D.C., she found herself surrounded by reporters. Questions flew at her from every side. The Daughters of the American Revolution have refused to let you sing at Constitution Hall because you are a Negro. How does that make you feel? Are you insulted? Are you angry? What are you going to do? For many of their questions, Anderson had no answer. But the answer to the last question was clear. She would do what she had always done, what she did best. She would sing. Even as a little girl in Philadelphia, singing in her church choir, Marian Anderson knew her destiny. And that's a person's fate in life, what she's meant to do. Knew her destiny lay in her rich, wide-ranging voice. But her father died when she was 12. Her mother worked long hours cleaning houses and taking in laundry. That means she did other people's laundry for money. She earned barely enough to feed and clothe her 3 daughters. Music lessons for young Marian seemed just a dream, but talent alone was not enough. She needed training. A local music teacher generously offered Marian free lessons, but it was not long before the teacher said she taught her all she could. If Marian was really serious about her music, she should go to music school. Perhaps she could win a scholarship. Marian Anderson rode the trolley, and that is a streetcar, down onto the school. There she joined a long line of other excited applicants. And those are people who have applied for something, in this case, a spot in the school. Patiently, she waited for her turn. But when she reached the window, the clerk, a white girl her own age, looked right past her to the next person in line. She watched, bewildered, as the girl handed forms to everyone but her. Finally, she turned to Anderson and said, "What do you want?" Anderson asked for an application form. The girl stared at her coldly. "We don't take colored," she said. Shocked and hurt, Anderson walked out. At home, her mother urged her not to give up. If she was meant to sing, there would be a way. And there was. An Italian voice teacher who had trained many opera stars heard her sing and agreed to take her as his student. But his fees were more than she could possibly afford. Sadly, Anderson thanked him for his time and left. However, her friends and neighbors were not about to let our Marian miss out on such an opportunity. They put on a benefit concert at the church and raised $600, enough for a whole year of voice lessons. The work was hard. Marian sang splendidly without training, but she needed to learn to control her voice like a professional. She even needed to learn to breathe differently. She practiced her exercises over and over, and she learned new songs, Italian, German, French. At first, she simply memorized the words, syllable by syllable. But how could she give true feeling to a song she didn't understand? So she had to study languages as well. Those struggles were behind her now. Touring Europe, she became a huge sensation, and that's someone who causes great excitement. Audiences crowded into, and before we move on, I want to point out that right here, this whole part right here, when it was talking about when she was younger, is a flashback. So currently she's about to perform, and this group is not wanting her to. She flashes back to when she was younger and how she got there. So, and then it brings us back to the present. Those struggles were behind her. Now that's when we come out of the flashback. Touring Europe, she'd become a huge sensation. Audiences crowded into concert halls to hear the elegant American contralto. What is a contralto? A female singer with a low voice. With regal poise, and regal means royal-like, and poise is like calm, confident assurance. She would stand by the piano, closed-eyed, eyes closed, her velvety, expressive voice expanding to fill every corner of the room. Once, after a concert, the legendary conductor Arturo Toscani came backstage. "Yours is a voice," he told Anderson, "such as one hears once in 100 years." When she returned to the United States, fame and success followed. Here, too, she was invited to sing with the finest concert halls, often to sell out crowds. But across the footlights, Anderson often saw only white faces. In many cities, in the South especially, people of her own race had to sit up like in the balcony. And as warmly as the audience applauded, after the show, a restaurant or hotel manager might coldly turn her away. Anderson responded to these slights with quiet dignity. She was determined not to let other people's fear and ignorance pull her away from what really mattered, her music. And ignorance is lack of knowledge. The singer's popularity continued to grow. Her manager worked hard to find concert halls big enough to hold Anderson's growing audiences. When her tour schedule brought her to Washington, D.C. in 1939, the choice was obvious. The city's largest and grandest concert venue, Constitution Hall, and a venue is a location where special events and gatherings occur. Anderson's manager wrote to make arrangements. The date he wanted was already taken, but he suggested other dates in April. He was told those were taken too. In fact, no dates were available at all. Do you think those dates really were taken? Or were they just saying they were taken? What do you think? Could this be true? Suspicious, the manager asked a well-known white pianist to try to book the hall. The answer came back. The pianist could have his pick of any date that spring. The truth quickly came out. Constitution Hall was owned by the Daughters of the American Revolution. Only women, white women, whose ancestors had fought the British were allowed to join this group. And the DAR would not rent Constitution Hall to any African American performer, even one as widely admired as Marian Anderson. News of this refusal outraged Anderson's many fans. Fellow musicians canceled their performances. Among them was the famous violinist Jacques Heifetz, who said, "I am ashamed to play at Constitution Hall." Fiorello LaGuardia, the mayor of New York, sent the DAR a telegram. "No hall is too good for Marian Anderson." The First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt even resigned from the DAR in protest, making front-page headlines all over the country. Everywhere Anderson went, reporters swarmed around, demanding a reaction. What could she say? The uproar saddened and embarrassed her. Dignified as always, she refused to speak out publicly against the DAR. Many of the group's members she knew disagreed with the national leadership. As she wrote later in her autobiography, she strongly believed that a whole group should not be condemned because of an individual or section of the group does a thing that is not right. So condemned means judged or as wrong or evil. Anderson had faith that right would always win out in the end. All she wanted was to make beautiful music. She was certain she would find a place to sing. Then came a surprising invitation from the United States government. How would Anderson like to sing on Easter? Easter Sunday at the Lincoln Memorial. It would be an outdoor concert, free, open to all, and with no segregation, which is the separation of people based on their race. Anderson struggled over her reply. She was a singer, not an activist. She did not enjoy being the center of attention for reasons other than her music. To sing at the Lincoln Memorial would be a bold political statement. At best, she'd feel uncomfortable. At worst, she might find herself at the center of an ugly riot. I studied my conscience, she wrote. I could see that my significance as an individual was small in this affair. I had become, whether I liked it or not, a symbol representing my people. I had to appear. Easter Sunday arrived. Hours before the concert started, people began gathering at the Lincoln Memorial. By the time Anderson's car pulled up, the crowd had grown to 75,000. Millions more waited at home by their radios. Police led Anderson through the throng to a platform front of the monument. The throng is a large crowd. My heart leapt wildly and I could not talk, she wrote. I even wondered whether I would be able to sing. She barely noticed the many Washington notables who joined her on the platform. Members of President Roosevelt's cabinet, Supreme Court justices, senators, and congressmen were all on hand to hear the celebrated singer. Anderson looked out at the sea of faces, black and white, women, men, and children. There seemed to be people as far as the eye could see. She wrote, the crowd stretched in a great semicircle from the Lincoln Memorial around the reflecting pool on the shaft of the Washington Monument. I had a feeling that a great wave of good will poured out from these people, almost engulfing me. There's a picture of her singing in front of the Lincoln Memorial. Standing tall and determined, Anderson looked like a queen and sighed, though she was terrified. The first notes of the Star-Spangled Banner boomed over the loudspeakers. For a desperate moment, Anderson felt as if she were choking. Would the words she knew so well refuse to come? She found her voice. Thousands of voices joined Anderson as she led her audience in the national anthem. She went on to sing America, followed by an operatic aria, Schubert's Ave Maria, and three traditional African American spirituals. Her voice soared, powerful, rich, and thrilling. When she finished, a great roar went up. The crowd surged forward. They could not stop cheering and applauding. Of all who gathered that day at the Lincoln Memorial, no one could have been more moved deeply than Marian Anderson. Her courage and faith had been rewarded. America had reached out to embrace one of its greatest singers. I'm overwhelmed, Anderson told the crowd. I can't tell you what you've done for me today. I thank you from the bottom of my heart again and again. And that is the end of our story. Controversy 3. Check your reading. Okay, and this is always where you need to go and open up that all-important review document. So you're going to open up a Word document. Go to your little Windows page down here. Click Word. Or if you're going to use Google Chrome Docs, that's fine too. Whatever it is that you're going to use. Oh, it's opening up on my next page. So you open up a new Word document. I'm going to go ahead and put review, or let's put 1.07 review. Review. Okay, and now we're going to want to copy the question. So we're going to highlight it and right click and copy, or you can highlight it and click Control C on your keyboard. Bring back up the document. And then you can hit Control V, or you can right click and paste. And there it is. And then I like to tab in and put answer. And let's see if we can figure out the correct answer. In the story, which of the following were responses of Anderson's fans to her being turned away from the Constitution Hall? Select all that apply. So that means we're going to have more than probably one correct answer. Other musicians canceled performances at the hall. Did they do that or not? Most DAR members, Daughters of American Revolution, resigned. Did most resign or not? Eleanor Roosevelt resigned from the DAR. Did she do that or did she not? The mayor of New York City sent a telegram of protest. Is that true or false? Okay, best I remember, other musicians did cancel from the hall. Eleanor Roosevelt for sure resigned from the DAR, and probably some others, but I don't know if most of them did. And the mayor of New York did. Let's see if I'm right. Yay! All right, so once you know the answers, and in this case, it's going to be all of these. So you're going to need to copy and paste each one of those into your document. So you're going to put Control V, or I'm going to undo that because I want it to maintain. Okay, undo. And I want to actually right click because I can choose this here and it will stay the same way. And then instead of the period, I'm going to put a comma and add the others. So copy and then click back on my document and right click and that clipboard with an A, put my cursor at the end, backspace that period, comma, and do the last one that was correct. Copy, right click, and we'll clipboard paste. And then I'll leave that one. And then we're ready. And I would go ahead and put number 1 there. And we can do number 2 and go to the next question. And you would do this for every time that you see a multiple choice question. And number 2, Anderson was not sure about singing at the Lincoln Memorial. Why did she choose to do it? This only has one answer. A, she realized she was a symbol for her people. B, other people had invested a lot of money in her. C, she did not want the management to be angry with her. Or D, she knew it was an important step for her career. Why was she not sure about singing at the Lincoln Memorial, but ultimately chose to do it? All right, check your answer. When you know the correct answer, copy the question and the correct answer into that review document. You can pause, stop the video, and start it once you've completed that. Okay, let's move on to number 3. What did Marian Anderson want to do most? A, she wanted to gain equal rights for all African Americans. B, she desired to make beautiful music. C, she intended to make a name for herself as a singer. Or D, she wishes to travel around the world. Why did Marian Anderson, what did she want to do the most? When you have your answer, check it by clicking down here, check. When you know the correct answer, copy and paste the question and correct answer into your review document. You can pause the recording to do that. Welcome back, and let's go to the next question. Anderson sings to a crowd of 75,000 at the Lincoln Memorial. What event led to the performance? A, Constitution Hall denies Anderson's request to sing there. B, Anderson becomes a singing sensation in Europe. C, Anderson sings to a crowd of 75,000 at the Lincoln Memorial. Or D, fans protest discrimination against Marian Anderson. What event led her to perform in front of a crowd of 75,000 at the Lincoln Memorial? Once you have your answer, click here to check it. Once you know the correct answer, copy and paste the question and correct answer into your review document. Please pause the video. All right, let's move on to question number 5. What occurs after Constitution Hall denies Anderson's request to sing there? A, Anderson returns to Europe. B, Anderson sings to a crowd of 75,000 at the Lincoln Memorial. C, fans protest discrimination against Marian Anderson. Or D, nothing occurs. And if you don't remember, always remember you can leave this story up where you can click back and go back through the story to find out what happened after she performed. Once you have your answer, check it. Once you know the correct answer, copy and paste the question and correct answer into your review document. Please pause the recording. All right, let's continue on to the last question. Which word best describes the kind of person Marian Anderson was? A, dignified, B, angry, C, embarrassed, or D, rebellious? How would you characterize Marian Anderson? Once you have your answer, check it. Once you know the correct answer, copy and paste the question and correct answer into your review document. There may be more, so don't just stop there, because not only will the quiz cover the stories, but it also covers usually some grammar or some other little lessons. So we're going to move on. We got 4, 5, 6, and 7 left to do. Learn controversy 4. Character. Think about the story you just read. You learned about a woman who was a great artist, who also became famous for her role in the fight against racism and discrimination. Does the audience accept her? And that accept means the verb meaning to acknowledge as correct or appropriate. Right. What did you learn about Anderson's character? Examine what you've learned by answering these questions. And again, you might want to copy and paste these into that review document. Wouldn't hurt. How does Anderson respond to racism? Think of your answer and then check it. Anderson responds to racism with dignity. She does not get caught up in politics because her chief goal is to make beautiful music. Even so, she is unable to escape the fact that she is a symbol for her people. Number 2, do you think Anderson's life changed at all after her performance at the Lincoln Memorial? If so, how? If not, why not? Let's check and see if you were right. Answers will vary, but Anderson's life probably changed in several ways. First of all, her own confidence was strengthened. She was very nervous that day. Her success at singing to the crowd that size must have boosted her self-esteem. Secondly, she probably received more invitations to sing at concert halls than were previously closed to her. Her incredible success on that Easter day must have led the way to a much broader audience. Probably exposed her to more people. All right, see down here we have 4 slides, so we need to go to 2. Now that you've thought about the content of this article, consider how the author chose to write Anderson's story. Read the opening paragraph of the article. The instant Marian Anderson stepped off the train in Washington, D.C., she found herself surrounded by reporters. Questions flew at her from every side. The Daughters of the American Revolution have refused to let you sing at the Constitution Hall because you're a Negro. How does that make you feel? Are you insulted? Are you angry? What are you going to do? The author of this article does something a little different from other authors. Instead of slowly building up to a dramatic event, This author puts the reader right in the middle of the story at the beginning. This narrative technique is called in medias res. What do you think she does? Why do you think she does this? Why does she use medias res? Why does she want to put the reader right in the story? Check and see if your answer is what they put. By the beginning, in the middle of an action, the author pulls the reader into the story. The reader wants to know what is going to happen and becomes more attentive to details in order to understand what is going on. This is called a hook. Even if it's a little confusing, the author does give you some clues about the main character, the setting, and the circumstances. Read the introduction and move to the next slides to check words and phrases that are clues from the author. The instant Marian Anderson stepped off the train in Washington, D.C., she found herself surrounded by reporters. Questions flew at her from every side. The Daughters of the American Revolution have refused to let you sing at Constitution Hall because you are a Negro. How does that make you feel? Are you insulted? Are you angry? What are you going to do? So what do you think she included this one? The clue is Washington, D.C. tells the reader where the story takes place. So the setting is Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. Reporters. The women getting off the train are surrounded by reporters. This suggests that the women are famous or important or newsworthy. Questions. The word questions gives the reader the impression that something big is happening. Refuse to let you sing. The author shows the beginning details of the controversy. The woman is a singer and she is not allowed to sing at a particular place. Negro. By using the word Negro, the author shows us that the crisis centers on this woman being an African American. Angry. By using the word angry, the author suggests another possible response by Anderson. Okay, we've got to go to 4. Dramatic effect. The author also uses flashback. And again, this is a narrative technique that allows an author to introduce past events that have a direct impact on the story's present. The author uses flashback to narrate the events of the story. The author jumps back and forth through time. After the segment you just read, the author states what Anderson had decided to do. She would sing. The next paragraph begins, even as a little girl in Philadelphia. This takes the reader back into Marian Anderson's history as a musician, including the crisis over Constitution Hall. The author does not give important background information for the episode at the beginning of the story, so she's not doing it chronologically. Not until the paragraph that begins, police led Anderson through the throng to a platform in front of the monument pages, it's into the narrative. Does the story return to the episode that began in the opening paragraph? Now we're ready to move forward. Controversy 5. Compare two texts. The author has organized the story by dividing into the middle in media res, going back to the past to give detail and context, and then returning to the middle and finishing the story. Now read another text about Marian Anderson. As you read, think about how the text is organized, the similarities and differences between this text and Marian Anderson's scenes. Which style and structure of writing you prefer? To read the biography of Marian Anderson, visit the website PBS American Experience. So we click there and it's going to open the article. We're not signing up for this right now. Just click off that. Marian Anderson, a musical icon from the collection of women in American history. It's an article written by Eleanor Roosevelt. And this is a picture of Marian Anderson and Mrs. Roosevelt. Anderson was born in 1897 in South Philadelphia. Hardworking and respectable, her mother was a former school teacher. Her father delivered ice and coal throughout the city. At the heart of their community stood the Union Baptist Church at the center of Fitzwater and Martin Streets. It was within these halls that Marian first began to sing. Her two younger sisters also possessed musical talent, but it was Marian who garnered the most attention. When she was only 14, the choir master, Alexander Robinson, moved her from the youth to the adult choir. She stunned the other members, not only with the strength and beauty of her voice, but also with her ability to sing any part of a hymn upon demand, whether it was a soprano, alto, tenor, or bass part that Robinson needed. He could rely on Marian to provide it. The congregation had such faith in her that they started a Marian Anderson Future Fund, which would pay for the lessons with the city's leading voice instructors and support her performances. The fund would provide Marian with the support she needed after her father's death in 1911. She continued to give concerts while she attended the South Philadelphia High School for Girls, and her teacher, Dr. Lucy Langdon Wilson, arranged for the famed Italian voice master Giuseppe Bochetti to hear her. He remembers this first meeting as occurring at the end of a long, hard day, when I was weary of singing and singers, and when a tall, calm girl poured out Deep River in the twilight and made me cry. While Philadelphia conservatories turned Marian away with the refusal, "We don't take colored," she quickly acquired influential fans who would aid her career. In 1925, Bochetti entered Marian in a contest with 300 other contestants. The winner would make a solo appearance with the New York Philharmonic Symphony Orchestra. 17-year-old Marian auditioned and won. The achievement prompted Bochetti to take her to Europe, training and performing. Marian made her European debut at the Paris Opera House in 1935. The success she met with there made her the toast of Europe, entertaining in command performances before King Gustav in Stockholm and King Christian in Copenhagen. As a young Black woman from the South Philadelphia who could superbly deliver Russian folk songs, classic German and French arias, as well as Negro spirituals, she was a wonder and people flocked to hear her. Sibelius, the Finnish composer, was so inspired that he dedicated the song Solitude to her. The success she encountered in Europe brought her back to America in 1935 for a public debut at Carnegie Hall in New York. The day before the performance, while still on the Lait de France, Marianne fell and broke her ankle. Determined to make her appearance, she performed the entire program standing on one foot, balancing against the piano, with her floor-length gown covering the cast on her ankle. Again, she met with success. It won her so much exposure and popularity that in 1936, she became the first African American to be invited to perform at the White House, and then sang there again when Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt were entertaining the King and Queen of Great Britain in 1939. Despite the fact that she was the country's third highest concert box office draw, Marian was still subjected to the racial bias of the time. When she traveled in the United States, she was often, like all African Americans of her time, restricted to colored waiting rooms, hotels, and train cars. In one instance, she was allowed to stay in an upscale Los Angeles hotel, but not to enter its formal dining room. She learned to avoid these affronts by staying with friends and in the cities where she performed and driving her own car instead of taking the train. When she performed in the South, despite a general acceptance by the public, the newspapers could not bring themselves to refer to her as Miss Anderson. The Southern press came up with other forms of addresses in order to avoid paying her any type of difference. Artist Anderson and singer Anderson frequently being used. This type of treatment was symptomatic of the pervasive racism of the time. It finally came to a head in 1939 when Marion's manager, Sol Hurok, and Howard University tried to secure a performance for her at the Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. The Daughters of the American Revolution, who owned the hall, refused to accommodate Anderson. The rebuff was widely publicized when Eleanor Roosevelt herself, a member of the DAR, publicly resigned from the organization in protest. In her letter to the DAR, she wrote, "I am in complete disagreement with the attitude taken in refusing Constitution Hall to a great artist. You had an opportunity to lead an enlightened way, and it seems to me that your organization has failed." Outraged, the Marian Anderson Committee formed a petition the DAR and likened the organization's action to those of Hitler's racist regime. Let me go back up here and read the caption of this. Marian Anderson noted contralto sings the Star-Spangled Banner at the dedication of the mural commemorating her free public concert on the steps of Lincoln Memorial on Easter Sunday, 1939, January 6, 1943, courtesy of the Library of Congress. In her response, Eleanor and the committee arranged for Marian to give her concert on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial with the Mall of the Washington as her auditorium. Symbolically, the concert took place on Easter Sunday, April 9, 1939. The sun was shining as 75,000 people of all races crowded together, the largest gathering to assemble there since Lindenberg's reception in 1927. Feeling the meaning of the occasion, Marian had tears in her eyes when she delivered "Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen" in America. With heartbreaking pathos, the event was so momentous and inspiring that the DAR finally invited Marian to sing at the hall in 1943 for a war relief concert. At that event, both Black and white concertgoers attended. Marion's awards were many. In 1938, Eleanor Roosevelt presented her with the NAACP's Springer Award for that American Negro who has made the highest achievement in any honorable field of endeavor. In 1941, she was granted the Edward Bach Award for Distinguished Service in the city of Philadelphia. A key moment in her career came in 1955 when she became the first African American to perform at the Metropolitan Opera. 3 years after this immense achievement, President Eisenhower named her a delegate to the 13th General Assembly of the United Nations. Over 24 universities presented her with honorary doctorates, and in 1963, President Lyndon Johnson awarded her the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And here's the picture of Marian Anderson standing before an audience in front of the Lincoln Memorial, April 20th, 1952, courtesy of the Library of Congress. And there you can see the Washington Monument. And then you have the shallow pool that's in front of it, and all the people that were gathered there to listen to her sing. In 1965, Marian gave her final performance at Carnegie Hall in New York. Afterwards, she settled with her husband, Orpheus Fisher, on a farm in Connecticut. She died of congestive heart failure on April 8, 1993. The following June, a memorial service attended by 2,000 admirers paid tribute to the singer whose beautiful voice exposed the country's ugly racial divisions. The singer, who had once been barred from performing in the nation's capital and who had been forced to use the back entrance at posh hotels, had become an American musical icon. All right, so think about, how was that text organized? Was there any flashbacking going on in that text? Draw you a Venn diagram if you need to compare and contrast the differences between the two. To me, the second one was more factual, had less of the quotes directly from Marian herself. Which style and structure of writing do you prefer? Did you like the first one better, or did you prefer the second one? All right, we're on 1 of 3, so we're going to click to go to the second slide. Biography. As you may have noticed in your reading, the purpose for the biography you have just read differs from what the article Marian Anderson sings. Use these questions to explore the author's purpose, as well as the devices used to support that purpose. How is the purpose of the biography different from the purpose of the story? Let's see if your answer is true. The purpose of biography is to tell the story of an individual's life. The biographical piece focuses on Anderson's life from start to finish. The purpose of the article was to focus on a critical moment in Anderson's life, her performance at the Lincoln Memorial, and show how Anderson triumphed in the face of adversity. Number 2, how is the text of the Anderson biography organized? Think about it. How's the first one? How's the second one? The text is organized using chronological order. In other words, it begins with Anderson's early life and ends with her death. Number 3, is the biography's organization different from the story about Anderson? If so, how? The article does not follow the order of Anderson's life. Rather, it begins with the most dramatic moment in the story, explains how Anderson got to that point, and continues to the end. The biography follows the order of events in Anderson's life, starting with the beginning, middle, and of course the end, her death. In the next activity, learn how the story and biography about Marian Anderson compare. Oh, number 4. Which style of structure do you prefer and why? It's up to you. Perhaps you like the drama of the article structure because it grabs your interest in the beginning, then makes you wait until the end to see what happens. Or maybe you like the order and logic of the biography's organization since it's easy to follow. There's no right answer to this question, but you must be able to explain your answer. And we go to slide 3. Comparing and contrasting pieces. All right, we got Marian Anderson Sings, biography of Marian Anderson. The story begins with medias res. Remember what that means? Explains how Anderson got there and then finished. Was that Marian Anderson's song or was it the biography of Marian Anderson? Which one was organized that way? I think it was this one. The author's tone and instructional matter of fact. Was the author matter of fact in Marian Anderson's song or in the biography? The article. I'm going to say the article. The author uses drama and suspense to lure the reader in. Was that in Marian Anderson's song or the biography of Marian Anderson? The author uses colorful language and a bold tone. Would that be Marian Anderson Sings or in the biography, the article? The story is told in chronological order, beginning with Anderson's birth and ending with her death. The author uses interesting facts and events from history to draw the readers in. And then check your answer, and if you need to, make any adjustments, but got it right. Now that we're on slide 3, we can go back up here to the top and click forward to go to 6. Observations. Fill out the observation sheet for Marian Anderson. Use details from the text we read to come up with ideas for each category and support your observations. Remember to keep your observation sheet for use on the module exam. Remember, you might need it. Begin by downloading the observation sheet either here or from where we have it downloaded. Is this it? I believe this is it. Yeah, here. So we're going to talk about, of course, we're obviously talking about Marian Anderson. We're going to talk about character traits. So how would you describe Marian Anderson? And jot those down. Was she kind? What was she like? Did she anger easily or not? Then it asks for her motivations. What motivated her? What did she love to do? Contributions to music. How did she influence music? Then your opinions or response. How do you think and feel she handled the controversy? Do you think she was right? Do you think she was wrong? If you think she's right, why? If you think she's wrong, why? Did she handle the situation well? That's pretty much that. And then you're ready to go on to number 7 once you finish that observation sheet and save it along with your review page. Controversy 7, lesson wrap up. Marian Anderson faced many difficult times in the pursuit of her dream of becoming a professional singer. She found strength in her self-confidence and the family, friends, and teachers who supported her. She was not beaten down, but instead rose above discrimination and ugly racial controversies to become one of the most influential American singers of the 20th century. As you continue to read about influential people, think about what gave them their courage to face the adversity and push on. What would you do if faced with similar struggles? In this lesson, you learned how authors use flashbacks and in media res to shape the narrative structure of their writing, how authors choose which organizational structures to use in their writings, how to compare and contrast organization of two texts focused on the same topic. Remember to complete all of the activities in this lesson before moving on to lesson 1.08. Thank you for following along with me today. I hope this has helped you. Of course, as we go on to the next one, it takes us right back to the learn. And once you finish all that, you are up next and ready for 1.08 innovation. And that one does have an assessment with it. This 108 assessment will include questions from 107 and 108. All right. Y'all have a good day, and I will see you next time. Bye.